welcome to the Policy Committee on Tuesday the 1st of December. Vicky, if you can give me apologies for absence and substitute.
Thank you, Chairman. Just apologies from Councillor Barrett, and we've no substitutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Confirmation of minutes. Looking around the members. Everybody happy and nobody waving or shouting or doing anything? So we'll take those as they are. Public participation. I don't believe of any members of the public. And declarations of interest. I don't believe we've any of those either, have we? This agenda, I'm looking around, nobody waving again or shouting. So on to item 5. Councillor Mulligan, would you like to do the revenue budget monitoring?
Thank you, Chairman. So this report presents the second financial forecast for the 2020-2021 revenue budget as at 30th of September 2020. Based on the September budget monitoring exercise, Council's performance against budget is a forecasted overspend of £222,000 for the full financial year. This takes into account the grant support already received from the Ministry for Housing, Communities and Local Government, and an estimation of the compensation awarded also by the MHCLG for lost fees and charges. It also reflects an assumed contribution to future years' budget, mitigation, and possible collection fund support in the next few years. Paragraphs 3.4 to 3.11 summarize the major budget variances of other issues together with their ongoing impact. Appendix A gives further details of the variance by service. The income and savings plan has projects totaling £176,000 for delivery this financial year. The impact of delivery of the completed projects on future years are savings of up to £68,000. This information is shown in Appendix B. Appendix C provides an analysis of the current reserves and balances of the Council. The Chief Finance Officer will determine how in-year variances are treated, taking into account the current year and medium-term financial position of the Council. And the recommendations are shown in paragraph 2 in those 2.1 to 2.4. I won't read them out, I'll just briefly summarize. So we're being asked to note the outturn revenue budget monitoring position. We're asked to note the latest position of the savings achieved this quarter. We're asked to note the central government COVID grant support and the estimated sales fees and charges compensation receivable. And we're asked to note the impact of the COVID pandemic that it has had, note the impact of the COVID pandemic and how it has had a significant impact on the income and costs of the Council. I will move those recommendations. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Mulligan. Do you want to add anything at this point, Richard, or are you?
No, I'm happy, Chair. Just take questions if there are any. Thank you.
Looking for hands going up, or Councillor Wheeler, you've indicated.
Bear with me, sorry. Thank you, Chairman. I was just still coming in terms of the split screens. And obviously deference to Councillor Welch's comments 2 meetings ago. I won't bore everybody with all the questions I've asked in advance. Happy for them to be circulated. Grateful to James Horden for answering all of the questions that I asked. Probably there are some comments that just have arisen from them that I'd like to share with the committee, really. In that, obviously, Councillor Mulligan has highlighted some of the financial concerns and pressures on the Council. One of the questions I asked was, were these pressures wholly down to COVID? And I've had assurances that most of the overspends and the income shortfalls are pretty much all COVID related. So, you know, they're not covering anything untoward. And it seems on the surface, and again, I'd welcome some guidance on that, that the £874,000 sales fees and charges compensation, we've done okay from central government. They seem to treat us quite generously. Obviously, it's not 95 to 100%, but it's a fair chunk of some of our anticipated losses that are going to be covered. One of the concerns that was raised in the report, and it's something that we should be wary of, is the potential changes to the business rates pool, and the influence it might have on our budget setting process. I've been told that there could be an impact there on our budget setting, and also sorry, I've backtracked something. And another pleasing thing is, in spite of the fees that are being covered, I've been told that the services are actually still putting in recovery plans, which is encouraging. Goodness knows how car parking guys can get a recovery plan in. I'm not sure, but certainly it's good to see the leisure services are being inventive with how they can deal with a lack of participation actually going to the centres itself. Aside from that, I think the only issue I raised was a couple of departments where there's some underspends, which is human resources and customer services. You've got a combined underspend of about 102,000 there. And I've been advised that a significant amount of that is due to retirees and people that have left. I'd be interested to know whether this has been addressed yet, because certainly with customer services, I imagine that department is under quite a lot of a lot strain at the moment. Thank you.
Councillor Heselton, I think you might be wafting your papers quite close to your microphone. It keeps coming through.
At least you know I'm here. Could I just move the recommendations for you?
You can second them. I think they've been moved.
Right, well, whichever.
Yeah. I mean, from my point of view, we weren't expecting the world's best picture with coronavirus going on. I think we've done pretty well. I think the government has been, as Councillor Wheeler said, slightly more generous than we might be expected they would have been with us. And on the whole, yeah, we can manage it. It's not a disaster to Craven, and we can keep all the services going, and we can manage it in year. Looking forward, there were some things mentioned in the budget about being able to cover some of our losses into the future. Sorry, the opening statement, should I say, not the budget. So I'm hoping that the picture actually looks a little bit better into the future. We also got the benefit of being able to get some new homes bonus, although that's a bit of a moot point until we actually see the figure that comes through from that. But on the whole, I don't think we had a complete disaster with compared with some other authorities we're seeing where they really seem to be in dire straits following this. So happy that it's been moved and seconded. Looking around for anybody else commenting. I've got some hands up. Councillor Welch.
Thank you, Chairman. It's about time I said something. Going back a few weeks ago, I made a comment about members bringing up a lot of questions when it would be quite suitable for them to bring it up with officers beforehand. I brought this up and because of concerns about how long the meeting was taking. You, in your reply, Chairman, said, well, yes, Councillor Wheeler does get in touch beforehand, as well as bringing things up later. I thought that's funny. I never mentioned any names. Later on in the meeting, as Councillor Wheeler says, oh, well, I don't want to hold Richard up any longer. And it's been brought up again tonight. Chairman, I never mentioned any names. I said, can members please do that? You were the one that brought it up mentioning names, not me. I would just like that clear, Chairman. Thank you.
Councillor Welch. Councillor Rose.
Thank you, Chair. I have to confess I don't have huge knowledge and understanding of every last penny that's been outlined, and I trust implicitly in the work of Richard and Councillor Mulligan. I suppose the two things that I'm conscious of is that whilst things don't look too bad at the moment, obviously close monitoring is going to be a key aspect of the future. And I'm also conscious that the long-term next 2-3 years are going to be fairly tricky to manage. And I assume that that is the case. And I just hope that the long-term effects aren't too disastrous, I suppose is what I'm trying to say. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I mean, things like business rates, we don't know where we're going to be in 6 months' time as we come out of this. And I think that, you know, the coronavirus response and how we respond to it and how we try and get businesses back up and running as quickly and efficiently as possible is going to be crucial in that, councillor Rose. Looking round, I know the members' hands raised and nobody waving. It's been moved and seconded. Are we all happy? Thank you. Patrick, if you want to move on to the capital programme.
Chairman. Yes, this is item 6, capital program monitoring for Q2. So this report presents the second financial update for the 2020-21 capital program at 30th September 2020. The report shows that following additions of previously approved projects, supplementary estimates, and slippage, the capital program is now valued at £9.531 million. Paragraphs 3.3 to 3.5 highlight the changes to the program, which give a forecasted outturn capital program of £7.065 million. At the end of Q2, expenditure on the program was £2.349 million. Appendix A gives commentary on each of the program projects, including progress. Forecasted outturn value for each project is also given. And the recommendations are shown in paragraph 2. I will read these out. 2.1, members note the capital budget position of the 2020-2021 capital program as at 30 September 2020. And 2.2, members note the 2020-2021 capital program and the proposed funding for the projects agreed at Q2. And I will move those recommendations, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mulligan. Members, looking around, Councillor Wheeler. Yeah, there's a lot of money to spend between now and then, but we've got some big projects coming off, so I'm happy to second from the chair. Looking around, members' comments. Councillor Rose.
Thank you, Chair. I just, when reading this through, I was just very encouraged at 3.5 that none of our capital projects are being too disadvantaged considering the circumstances we find are in. So I just want to say that was so encouraging, and I was pleased to see that we're able to continue with those particular projects. So how we've managed it, I'm quite sure it's all above board, but excellent to know that they can carry on. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Looking around, no more hands up. Are we happy to take that? Thank you, members. And then moving on, performance monitoring. It's with you, Patrick, but we normally pass it on. Rob, are you going to take this one?
I'm happy to. Is that okay?
Yeah, please, if you will.
Thank you. So yes, it's the Q2 performance monitoring report. This item, in general, progress has been pretty good considering the current circumstances. Most of the council plan actions are on track. There are a small number of exceptions which have some sort of plan in place, at least to bring them back on track, even if we don't expect to achieve them in the timescale that we originally did. And there are more service indicators that are green than are not, and I think in most cases there are clear reasons for them not being. There were quite a few red indicators on the people bit, which are fairly largely about people not completing PDRs in time, which most teams have something in place to address. And I think the financial part has been addressed thoroughly by Richard and James and Patrick's previous reports. I'm happy to take any questions.
Just one from me, Rob. On the PDRs, have we got a system for doing those now that we're doing so much remote working? Because I think they've always sort of been done face to face, and that it's obviously a bit more difficult now, isn't it?
I'd have to ask the HR team about the specifics of that. I think at the moment we're still attempting to do the same thing, but we're doing it via Zoom mainly, which has worked okay for me. I don't know whether I can speak for other colleagues. but that's what we've been doing thus far. I'd have to check with HR about whether they are intending to bring in anything else for remote PDRs, but I can do that and get back to you.
Thank you. No, I just noticed there was quite a few not completed, and if it was just a case of the new ways of working that we're going through, and if we're going to get a system up that makes it so it's easy to run. If you want to go again, Rob.
Yeah, sorry. I think it's more that people have knocked a bit off balance by all the extra things that they've had to do during the pandemic, and therefore have been they're a little bit behind the timetable that they would normally have followed. But most of the service managers that I spoke to have either brought things up to date already, and for example, the waste management ones are all completely up to date. And Tracy and Chris sent me a full list of all the PDR outcomes for that, so it's to demonstrate they've done it. So it's just that the reporting hasn't quite caught up for that yet, because that was Q2. So I think it should catch up with itself mostly in Q3 and then 1 or 2 in Q4. But I will check with HR and see whether there are any different arrangements they intend to put in place.
I mean, I sat through Select the other night, or their working group, looking at the how coronavirus had affected the council. It was amazing how it affected every single department. It wasn't just the obvious ones. If you know what I mean, environmental health. It gone right throughout the organisation, and there's some big changes for everybody. I have the chief exec with a hand up, and then Councillor Wheeler.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And it's really just say, yeah, of course, HR have got arrangements in. We've used Teams pretty extensively for PDRs. I think Rob actually encapsulated it quite nicely when he said, yeah, we were put a bit off balance because actually it was about implementing that remote working, making sure that's working correctly. So unfortunately, we are slightly behind timetable in terms of delivery of the PDRs. But the system is in place, and it seems to be working effectively now. In fact, Teams, Zoom, a big boon in terms of making sure that we keep in contact with the staff. Because I think, as you heard in the session with Select the other night, it's absolutely crucial that we keep that contact, that we keep staff up to date with what's going on. They still feel very much part of this organisation. And I know, Chair, you've attended at least one staff briefing where it has been all staff. Since then, we've also introduced an opportunity to do our core brief with Teams, so all staff are invited to that core brief, where it's normally just service managers. So we're using lots of new ways of working pretty effectively. Still learning, I've got to say, and we will continue to learn because we're a learning organisation. But PDRs, yeah, work is in progress and it is effective.
For that, Councillor Wheeler.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I sat in on the Select Committee last week and was encouraged by the findings that came out from it. I mean, yes, we've been hit badly as an authority, although one of the positive things that come out of the COVID-19 is the remote working from home. From what I gather, it's had a positive impact on our sickness absence records. And the response I got back from HR is that when people are feeling a bit under the weather, rather than having to drag themselves to the office, what they're doing is delaying working and putting in a full day's work when they're not 100%. So that is full credit to all the people that across all departments where that's had an impact. The report itself, before we go to the summaries, and again, thanks, Rob, for all the information you passed back. There were 3 areas of concern that were highlighted in the report. One was residual waste, and it is concerning that the residual waste for this quarter is 121 kilos, which is a 46% increase over target. So it seems we're getting further away from the target than getting closer to it, to our 50% recycling target. And I note that a lot of investment is going into education and awareness, which is laudable and creditable. But I'm wondering, looking at how effective that could be, are we considering any other measures to improve that target, such as incentives maybe? Fly tipping, again, I've been told that's going backwards, and I know we're taking action with regards to putting cameras and monitoring. I'd be interested to know how many people we've actually caught in these so-called hotspots, and what concerns we have there, especially in light of us, reviewing charges. And also planning applications. Our minors are 12% down. Our others are 56%. 24% down. The majors are actually doing well. We have a reasonably full department, I think. Very little sickness, and we're overspent on our costs in planning. So it doesn't make encouraging reading, it has to be said, with those stats. And I appreciate that we're going to discuss planning later on the agenda. But I'm just concerned. I'm wondering why so badly we're performing against those particular indicators. And surely it can't all be related to whatever the findings of the peer review are. And one general comment, and it's an audit one. Is our chairman of audit here tonight? Not sure. No, anyway, purchase orders still running at 27%. It's been discussed at audit. It's been discussed at this meeting on more than one occasion. At what point do we say that this is unacceptable, rather than saying we're improving?
I'm trying to decide who wants which of those. I think planning peer review is a big thing into trying to sort that one out. I think residual waste, I think there is an issue that people are working from home now, and therefore we're losing commercial waste because it's been dropped off in the bin at home because people are working from home. I don't know how we get around that one, but I'm guessing people spending more time in the house is bound to increase residual waste. I think we need to look at this long term, really. I'll maybe go to Carl on that if he wants to come in.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Councillor Wheeler, but the short-term answer to this is we don't know. All that we can say is that in terms of residual waste, is that we aren't alone in this, and quite a number of authorities are experiencing exactly the same thing that we're experiencing. So I'm sorry, but the leaders indicated some reason, perhaps that it might be for it, but at the moment we just simply don't know. It's an odd one. And it can only be because of people's habits have changed slightly, but we've just got to do more digging on this. We really have, because we've got to get back. We were doing quite well with the 50% recycling, for example, with the garden waste figures improving and all of this, and it just seems to have dipped. And as of yet, okay, there's education that we can carry out, of course there is, but at the moment that's rather hampered by the fact we can't necessarily go to schools that regularly. But I'm sorry, but at the moment the jury's out on this. It really is.
Does somebody want to come in on the planning? David, do you want to?
Yes, certainly. I think certainly Q2 is usually where we see a dip, but this is much more significant than we would normally have. It may be that Q2 is really the applications which are coming in at Q1, so therefore we've literally had a full process now of working from home, and I think we need to be much sharper in terms of that working at home practices to see that through. I think also we're seeing that on the other side, it's taking longer to get responses back from consultees and from applicants as well, things which slow down the process. But it's a concern, and we're keeping a very close eye on it and putting in new measures to make sure that individuals are very aware of where they're at with the different applications.
Then fly tipping, who's Paul Ellis? Are you taking that one? Have we had any convictions? What's Paul? Has it gone completely? Or is it me? It appears to have vanished at the thought of answering that.
Paul, you were muted while you were talking, and you knocked it off mute when you'd stopped.
Right. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, Chair, we've issued a couple of fixed fines for fly tipping. Obviously, what we're finding is that when we do identify tipping in these hotspot areas, the signage and the cameras is effective. Unfortunately, it just does then move the fly tipping onto other areas. But we're doing our best to keep on top of it. But there has been an increase in fly tipping certainly over the last 3 to 6 months, and we think that's down to the fact that the household waste recycling centres were shut for a period of time, and the perception that they perhaps continued to be shut, or the queuing arrangements that are in place.
Yeah, not good news. We don't want people fly tipping, but with the tip shut and people being stuck at home, there was a lot of people doing work at home, and I'm guessing that probably led a bit towards that. Hopefully, we'll see that come down as we move out of lockdown. And they did keep the tips open throughout this lockdown as well. Last one, purchase orders. Who wants to take that one on board? Or Richard,
I'm happy to comment on that, Chair. Yeah, it is an issue that, as Councillor Wheeler said, it's been brought up in Audit Committee. We've referred to it here. It's unfortunate in a way that the sort of plan we were trying to, or intended to, start to roll out at the early part of the financial year, we had to delay because of some of the changes that we've talked about. But it does need to be addressed. We've got a plan to try to improve compliance. This is a sort of partly an education thing, really, with services as well, to ensure that they're following the proper practices in the right way. It is something that's flagged in audit reports, and there is clearly a compliance issue. But there are other measures in this sort of purchasing and procurement process that mean there are other controls around it, but that's not to get away from the fact that we do need to improve on our compliance with that. And with Rob, we've been working on a number of ideas to build into a plan that we're now in the process of speaking to services about, to try and do that. And some of that's about just structuring the way that we enter into some of our arrangements with suppliers in a sort of slightly different way, so that we can have essentially one order as part of our call-off arrangements for a fixed period of time, so that one order will cover a period of activity or a number of transactions. And looking at some of the data, there is quite a lot of fairly minor procurement that goes through on this stat, and we think it's probably more appropriate perhaps if some of that was procured via purchasing cart as well, which will be another sort of way to improve the statistic. But it's right, it's been too low for too long. We've got a plan to address it, and hopefully we'll be able to report improvements during the course of the rest of the year, and certainly into next year. Thank you.
Councillor Ayton and Councillor Rose. I think you've just muted yourself, David.
Are we right now? Yeah. It was actually on fly tipping that I raised my hand. I was wanting to know that our other local authorities, neighbouring authorities, experiencing the same problem with fly tipping. As their percentage of cases up, or is it just local to Craven? Don't know whether you can answer that or not, but
Paul, if you can come back.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can't give an immediate answer on that, Chair. Would need to come back when we've had the opportunity to check with other local authorities as to how they're experiencing fly tipping at the moment.
It's certainly been a news item on it through the pandemic. The fly tipping has been on the increase in various areas across the north. So I'm guessing it is, David, but like I say, we'll get some figures. Councillor Rose.
Thank you, Chair. With respect to housing needs, the services obviously quarter two performance survey, With respect to the dual diagnosis nurse at the hostel for the homeless, have they managed to find a replacement? Have I misread that, or is that position still vacant? Obviously, it provides an excellent service, and I was very encouraged to read what we are able to provide for rough sleepers, the homeless members of the community. I was just interested to know if the nurse position had been filled or will be very soon, hopefully. Thank you.
I'm looking around. Anybody got a reply on that one? There doesn't appear to be any hands shooting up to say from officers. Paul?
No, again, Chair, I can get confirmation as to whether that post has been filled now or not. I'll let Councillor Rose know.
Thank you. With that, members, I haven't got any more hands raised or nobody's waving madly at me. Can we assume that can we assume that we're all, yep. So happy to note the state of that report. I'll move it as chair. I don't think it's been moved, has it? I probably need a seconder. Councillor Myers, thank you. Moving on, fees and charges. Back to you, I believe, Patrick.
Thank you, Chairman. This report summarizes and presents the proposals from officers for the fees and charges that require member approval. The service area fees and charges that require approval from members are car parking, garden waste collection, bereavement services, and commercial and trade waste. In addition, there are new changes to charges for development control which require approval. These are pre-planning application advice charges. The information is summarized in paragraph 3.3. The details of the fees and proposed fees and charges and supporting information is attached at Appendix A. Members will see from the report that there are no changes being proposed to car parking or leisure service fees, but increases are being proposed in bereavement services, development control, land charges, and street naming. There has also been a reorganization of the charges in the town hall to reflect the facilities available once they reopen. The licensing committee sets the fees for licenses. Exempt Appendix B gives details of the commercial trade waste fees. Appendix C provides a schedule of all the fees and charges that the council makes. Finally, Appendix D provides the information in respect of planning fees, which are set nationally. Planning fees were increased in January 2018. Changes to fees have been agreed with lead members. The 21-22 budget, which will be presented to the February meeting of Policy Committee, will include the impact of the changes to the fees and charges. Recommendations are in paragraph 2.1, that members approve the discretionary fees and charges that are subject to Policy Committee approval, and 2.2, note the discretionary fees and charges that are subjected to delegated authority approval. I move those, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mulligan. I'll just say that if anybody does want to debate the trade waste charges, we'll have to go into exempt session. So if you can let me know if that's what you want to ask a question about, then I'll move to do that. I'm happy to second from the chair. They are what they are. I think car parking, it'd be adverse to put it up this year, really, considering we need to get people back into our towns and town centres as soon as possible, as is safe to do so, possibly post-vaccine or whatever. But I think leaving them where they are at the moment. There was a move today to pay us to do free parking after 3 o'clock, but I haven't heard whether that got assurance from the cabinet today or not yet. So, but if that scheme does come in, I'm sure we'd operate it. Looking round for hands. Anybody? Nobody appears to be shouting. Councillor Wheeler.
Yes, Chairman. Thank you. I'm not quite sure. I don't want to talk about trade waste. What about the Craven Museum fees? Is that something else that needs to go through exempt? No.
I wouldn't have thought so.
No, I mean, I'm coming from this as a school governor, really. So we're looking to put it, and I understand that there's going to be a fairly hefty return on investment for the renovation of the town hall and the museum. But I did note that the educational visit fee's been put up in Craven by 50%, and that sounds a lot, but it is only £2 to £3. And outside of Craven, it's going from £3 to £5 but it is per child. And obviously, if it's school visits, it's not going to be one child that's turning up; it's going to be several. And school budgets, like everybody else's budgets, have been squeezed. And I'm hoping that this increase doesn't tip schools when they're looking at where they're going to do visits, that they'll think that possibly this additional cost might be a bit too much to bear and look elsewhere. Has this been considered, and are you concerned?
I think I'm about to get Councillor Myers to wax lyrical on the new improved offer that's going to be coming from the museum, and it will be worth that extra £1. But anyway, Councillor Myers, do you want to come in on that?
Well, you stole the words from my mouth, Chairman. I think David will confirm, but it's also having viewed, I don't like to call them the competition, but other equivalent museums and attractions that schools visit. I think we were previously really quite cheap, but obviously we're going to have a state-of-the-art service now. So, but obviously we don't want to discourage visiting Craven's museums. But I think it is a competitive price. But I'm sure David will be able to give you a bit more detail on it.
Yeah, so we've looked at what comparable school visits do, but it's not just obviously the fantastic facilities. Also, we're looking at the level of service that we give those schools as well in terms of the individual sort of focus on that school in terms of their curriculum, and so hopefully they'll get much more value out of it in terms of how it supports their wider work as a school.
We're obviously going to have things like classrooms and stuff like that there now as well, aren't we? It's not just going to be going around a bit of a dusty old museum, sort of in the corner, isn't it? It's going to be that ability to bring items out.
We've got a specific classroom now.
Yeah, we will have a state-of-the-art classroom, and you know, it's offered at a time as well. It's the interaction, and as David says, the ability we will have to make it their visits relevant to what they're studying, rather than just being a visit to a crusty old museum with most things in store. So yeah.
They'll get bang for the buck, Councillor Wheeler.
They're going to get bang for the
buck. On that note, members, I'm looking around. Nobody else is waving madly on fees and charges. Nope. Do we need a vote on that one, Annette? I'm guessing we do we?
Yes, please, Chair.
To you, Vicky.
Okay, so if I just call your name out, can you just say whether you're for, against, or you're abstaining, please? Councillor Foster, Chairman.
For.
Councillor Heseltine.
For.
Councillor Ireton.
For.
Councillor Liss.
For.
Councillor Madeley. He was here, but he's disappeared, so he must have left the meeting, but he was here at the beginning. Okay. Councillor Metcalfe.
For.
Councillor Morell.
For.
Councillor Mulligan.
For.
Councillor Myers.
For.
Councillor Noland.
For.
Councillor Place.
For.
Councillor Rose.
For.
Councillor Welsh.
For.
Councillor Wheeler.
For.
Thank you. That's unanimous, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicky. Moving on, agenda item 9, Treasury Management mid-year review. Do you take this one, Patrick, or is it straight to Richard?
I'll take it briefly, Chairman.
Thank you.
So this report looks at the performance of our investments, borrowing, plus Treasury and prudential indicators at the half year. Currently, investment returns are running behind that of the original forecast, and we are expecting an outturn of £135,000 compared to the estimate set as part of the budget of £170,000. This is due to a number of factors, including but not exclusive to the continued low base rate. No borrowing has been undertaken in the first half of the year. However, the council does indicate an underlying need to borrow for capital purpose. With interest rates being so low, the penalty for repaying or refinancing debt is prohibited. Treasury and prudential indicators, which were set as part of the budget setting process, are shown in Appendix A. The mid-year indicators reflect the additions to the capital program from slippage and supplementary estimates. The deposits that the council held at 30th September are shown in Appendix C, and the recommendation is in paragraph 2, and the recommendation is that members are recommended to note the Treasury Management mid-year review report for 2020-21. Thank you, Chairman. I'll move that.
Thank you, and happy to second again from the chair to save a bit of time. Members looking for hands raised and waving. It's an important report, but we never have a lot of conversation over it. But we do need to see it and see if there's anything going terribly wrong. But we seem to do very well with our finances these days. So does this just need noting, I'm guessing? So members happy? Go with that. Looking. I'm just scrolling. Item 10. Additional restriction grant, the local scheme. It's got Patrick's name on it, but I've probably done more with this than Patrick has. So if it's all right with him, I'll take it. We've got, obviously, you've got a late addendum that's come through for this. There was some wording on the original one that we needed to change, but we couldn't actually break into the file to change stuff. I'm hoping members are all right with that. The recommendations are as they are, that and I'm quite happy to move those. We've actually had an application for this scheme in place for a week because we wanted people to know that they can get in place, but obviously we can't pay anything out until it gets ascension from the policy committee tonight. So it's a case of, have members got any points on the scheme, on the appendix, or the recommendations really? But I'll move the recommendations from the chair. Do you want to add anything, Richard?
I'll second it.
Just to say, Chair, thank you. That apologies for the lateness of the paper and the scheme, which really was just finalised today, but it's really reflective of how the details around this have been changing quite significantly over the last few weeks, and the way that we produce schemes involving payments like this is to draft it out and then get somebody to write it in a proper way, really, that meets the requirements of a payment scheme. And you can imagine that, you know, every council is doing this at the same time, and there's been backlogs in trying to get things done. So that's led to the delay and the lateness of the paper. But the scheme that we've put forward, we think is a good scheme. It's robust. It reflects the spirit and the requirements of what government wants us to achieve. And as you said, Chair, to get things moving, we've got the infrastructure, so the application process up and running, because there are other schemes beyond this discretionary element that we've already got up and running, and we can use the same technology to service both schemes. So assuming members are happy tonight, we can do additional comms tomorrow to encourage people who may be eligible to start to apply. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Myers, Thank you, Richard.
Yes, so two things. I think it's very fair, and it's rather a clear scheme from the outset. I think many who are eligible will know exactly where they are and what they're entitled to. It equates to the mandatory scheme for those who pay or should pay business. So I think scheme, and there's some degree of officers look fit into any category that have hardship about the but what I would like to say as well is when we were talking earlier about performance of the council and the way that it's been affected by pandemic and the work of Select on looking at council services and the dedication of our staff and officers through the pandemic. I hope the public realise that this is an additional burden on staff who are already doing a full-time job. And the disbursement of the mandatory relief to 800 businesses, I think, to date, and the drawing up of a discretionary scheme is an additional workload on Richard and his team, who's in Revs and Bens. So thank you to all of them for quick turnaround on a scheme, and I know quick way in which they're responding to those who apply. It's a great credit to the dedication of staff.
Yeah, I mean, there's been this scheme, but there's also actually the Revs and Bens and housing benefit side, which has been phenomenal in the changes that had to go through in people's circumstances as they've moved in and out of these things. There's been a huge piece of work there. So Richard, Deborah and the team have done a fantastic job of keeping on top of that. And, it doesn't come out in the performance that we've slipped in that area yet. There's been a huge piece of work. So, it is a big thank you there. Just out of interest, Richard, where are we with paying out this time round?
Well, as of today, so under the LRSG scheme that's already opened, that we opened last week, we've had 830 applications and 780 have been paid, and the rest are being processed. And like I say, assuming if we approve this scheme tonight, we're intending to get the first batch of payments under this ARG scheme out by the end of the week.
Excellent, thank you. Councillor Wheeler.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry. Yeah, thank you, James. You pretty much what I was going to say, although I guess the question is, are you, probably to Richard, with businesses in some cases in quite precarious situations during this pandemic, sometimes it's a matter of days where it counts. So are you happy that you're fully resourced to make sure that we can pay these things out in a timely manner? Certainly from the figures you've quoted me, it sounds as if you are. Are you expecting an increased workload? And if so, are you fully resourced to deal with it in a timely manner?
Yes, Councillor. I mean, it's not easy because it's all additional work, but it's been given priority. We are keeping, or I'm keeping, a careful eye on the people who are closely involved in that to make sure that we are able to manage. We can draw on additional support externally to cover some of the other areas around our Revs and Bens function if we need to. So we do have that option, and we have used overtime, to address some of the issues as speedily as we can around these grants. We do also get funded by government under something called New Burdens. So these grant schemes that come through come with a small pot of additional funding for us as well to soak up any costs, so that when we have incurred additional costs to deliver the schemes, we're able to charge those against the funding that comes with it. But very aware of the demands on people, but also of the kind of competing demand of having to check these things before we pay them, and we are doing pretty well on that comparatively, but also the speed at which we need to get them out as well. So, you know, we are acutely aware of all of those things, and you know, we're managing them as well. Thank you.
Does this need a vote tonight?
Sorry, I've missed my list. No, if members were in agreement, I didn't feel a vote was appropriate, so it's a matter for you, Chair.
Looking round, there's no great dissension, hands waving, and so we'll take it that everybody's happy with that and move on to agenda item number 11. Over to Councillor Myers in his new role as lead member for planning.
Poison chalice. Well, actually, members, I think all the papers that have gone out to members and parish councils and whatever over the last few years, this is probably the most eagerly anticipated and the most thoroughly read document that we've produced. We didn't produce the LGA's peer review of our planning services, and it's a very thorough report. It doesn't make comfortable reading unless you take the view, as I do, that we are about affecting, bettering our services. That's a duty to the community, and we should be open to criticism, and we should affect change necessary. And that is what we are called to do by this report. Members who have experience of planning and the complaints and concerns of their residents will be familiar with many of the problems that were, and I don't intend to list them here. They're all listed there, and they were identified in the Craven Herald last week. So members, where do we go? Well, we have an action plan, as you see. We are setting up a implementation board to implement the recommendations of the LGA's report against our action. And I intend that we have our first meeting of the board before Christmas. We haven't got a date yet, but we will start work as soon as possible. What I would like to say to members, and not just the members of the policy committee, if you feel there are areas which could be improved, you have suggestions as to how things could be improved, the culture of planning, communication, and so on, please feed into that implementation board through me or the chairman of the planning committee, Councillor Brockbank, and we'll make sure they're taken on board, because we all want to work together to better planning processes for the good of our residents. So members, it's as I say, it's a moment for Craven to acknowledge its failings, but also to embrace changes that can be brought about to make everything far better. It'll be easy, but I'm determined to the best of my ability to see it through, as I know our officers and members who work together we can. So members, I do move the recommendation to the report. We're asked to note the report and the draft improvement plan, and to request be submitted to a policy meeting in March. I can say, for my part, that I would like to be able to report progress to this committee at a policy meeting in January. So I've every intention of raising this, even if it's just matters for you to note. So, as I say, Chairman, I move the recommendation.
Chairman Robert here. Could I say a few words, please?
Yeah, 1 second, Robert. I'll come to you first. Don't worry. Just to say, I agree with Simon. You know, planning sort of seems to be not performing to any shape. I mean, that's the reason for calling in a peer review and getting this back. we probably expected nothing less than we got. Just to say that, you know, work has already started on this. I think, you know, the Chair of Planning, Dave, the Chair of Planning, and Councillor Myers are already, and the officers are already looking at this action and trying to get some of these things in place as quickly as possible if they need to be. Over to you, Robert.
Yeah, our colleague Simon, absolutely right, where he says that we all need to acknowledge the failings that has been there for some time, and that the sooner we put that right, the better. I wish to just add an element to the recommendation. I think this is the worst peer review that we've had while I've been involved at Craven, and it is pretty disastrous, but it's nothing but what can't be put right. And it's something that affects not just the population, residents of Craven, applicants, but it affects the morale of our staff, and it affects members themselves, all 30 of us. And what I'm suggesting, Chairman, is that we share that responsibility to get it right on this action plan from the planning peer review, that we actually have a small member monitoring group, say 6 members or so, that are cross-party, but the purpose of that would be to oversee and guide the improvement plan. I think that way around, all members, or a greater proportion of members, would feel ownership of the way that we're trying to sort it out. So could I suggest that that be done, please? A member monitoring group to oversee and guide the improvement plan.
I'm mindful we've got an improvement board, and I don't want to create a lot of talking shops, Robert. I want to get things on and moving. But having said that, I want to get this right as well, Robert. It has to be sorted out. So
take your members with you.
Exactly. I'll take other people's comments, Robert, and we'll come back to that. I'm not saying no, by the way. I'm not saying no to anything at the moment on this. Councillor List, do you want to come in now, or do you want to hold your powder?
No, I'll come in now. Yeah, I would rather let the group that we're proposing, that we put forward to look at this and take action on this, to give them a chance to work, to be honest, before setting up the monitoring panels. I think the fairer option is that rather than having a separate group, Councillor Myers has already said that he's going to feed back to this committee as early as January, he's hoping, if only an interim report. So I think we will be all kept in the picture, and I'd rather we did that, because it is such a serious issue. I'd rather all members were kept in touch with this rather than another group. I really see no reason for it, Councillor Hazeltine.
If I may come back on that, I didn't suggest a separate group. I suggested that the group that's overseeing and guiding this improvement plan is broader than just a couple of members, and it's 6 members, to give it that bit more depth and responsibility across all members. Not a separate group, Carl, at all.
Oh, sorry, I misunderstood that
Yeah.
one. My comments.
No, I don't want any more groups.
My comment still stands, though. My view is that we should let this group, the suggestion that's put forward to us, which includes the chairman of planning, which has been put forward, that we let that group at the meeting take place. And Councillor Myers has already indicated that he will give us sufficient feedback, and I'll stick to my point. The sooner all members know about progress on this, the better.
Well, if you don't need us involved, or don't want us involved, I can take that. I don't agree.
It's certainly not, because we do want members involved, especially with formulating this action plan that we're doing tonight, because crucial. Of Councillor Rose, Councillor Welsh, Councillor Nolan, Councillor Wheeler, Councillor Ireton, in that order. So Councillor Rose.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, I'm relatively new to the Planning Committee and came to it with absolutely no professional background at all. So I've looked at this report very much from a personal point of view. So I make that clear to start with. First point, I do think it is a fair report. Yes, there are definitely areas for improvement, and that is encouraging because it does mean that we've all got something that we can work towards together. And that was something I hadn't realized before the report, how many other aspects there are going on in the background about planning. And I feel very encouraged that that now is going to become more of an holistic way of working. So that encouraged me a great deal. I think it is a shame that certain aspects of the report do paint us as committee members in a slightly, shall we say, dodgy, that's the wrong word, just slightly uncomfortable position. Planning is the most difficult committee to be on. I mean, Simon himself said poison chalice. And we're all learning how to deal with changes in planning, how to cope with this, that, and the other. And I just want to make the point that being on that committee at times can be quite stressful, to say the least. But I'm pleased to be on it, happy to be there, and I want to learn more. Obviously, there's a great deal for me as a member to learn, and I'm looking forward very much to this review to be a way forward, both for me as an individual member of the committee, but for the whole planning process, about which I have a huge amount, obviously, still to learn. So that was my feeling about it. That key thing being holistic, all working together, and certainly if we can have more of these small, short training sessions where we're not live streamed, where we can talk comfortably without being worried about what the general public might think of us. I've already had emails telling me what they think of me as a member of the committee, and I certainly don't want any more of them, but unpleasant ones, that is. Anyway, be that as it may, I think it's a fair report. As a committee member, I'm pleased to be involved in the forward progression, getting things better. And I just want to finish off by saying I'm very pleased that we do have councillor mayors to keep an eye on us and to help us along. And I very much appreciate the fact that he's going to lead us on. So thank you.
Pied Piper. Councillor Welsh.
Thank you, Chair. I was just thinking about the Councillor Rose's comments then, were comments about slightly uncomfortable. I would like to say, put them into stronger words, but probably not the appropriate time. Somebody who's been on the planning committee a long time and chaired it many years, I can understand where the complaints have come from. I've seen changes, some for the better, a lot for the worse. But we are where we are. And when Councillor Brockbank took over the chair this year, probably two times out of three, I would ring her or she would ring me asking for advice and how did it go and etc. etc. And I gave praise as well as I give criticism as to how it went, etc. And it was always appreciated, because I sometimes think as a chairman, for something like that, you're out on a limb, and it's not it's the most controversial controversial committee, the one where everybody turns up, the ones where it affects people's lives, the ones where there's millions of pounds at stake, and it can be the most controversial and well attended meeting there is. And I know for myself, it isn't actually easy. And kind of following up on that, today I must have been talking to Linda for about an hour and a half on the phone today, and it was a real heart-to-heart as to how things had gone, how things could be improved, how she could improve what she did, etc., etc. And it's very much appreciated. Yes, there was praise, as I said before, and there was a certain amount of criticism. But she always appreciates it, and I think it could have went down well, because I know she sat making copious notes, and how things will be implemented or not, I don't know. I think that as a chair, she would probably need as much support as she can get. And that's the main reason why I've spent many time discussing and talking to her about it. I'm not going to say any more, Chairman, because I would love to say things about the current planning committee, but I'm not going to. It's just that from the chair's point of view, it is damn hard. And there was a subject about, should we be having more training? I know the National Park, they're the same. You have 2 training sessions a year. If you don't go to one of them, you're off. And I think that should be the same. Maybe it should be a better choice of subject. Probably more on the legal side. And I enjoyed the last one we had. I sat through it twice because I sat through it at the National Park as well. But sometimes we could maybe just have a bit broader thing, a broader discussion, and make it compulsory for members to attend. Because it's easy to, just to sit in a committee and rattle off your opinion on this, and there's more experts on that planning committee than I've ever seen in real life in all my years. So maybe it would be a good idea on that perspective, but rather than officers say, we're having a training session on this, ask the members what they would like. Ask the members what they would appreciate, for that not only themselves and everybody else. And we will get over it, we will improve on things. And going back to when Sam was appointed, I said I wish him all the best of luck, because he was going to need it, and I think he probably will do. But I think if we all do our bit, and like I say, probably more training, etc., we can get over it and hopefully increase the public's opinion of how we do our job. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Wells. Councillor Nolan, did I take your hand down by accident? Would you like to come in now?
I would. Can you hear me okay? Right, a couple of things. I spoke to my colleague, Councillor Brown, and he sent these couple of points to Simon already, I think. One was that in future, to improve communications, the sort of thing you're talking about already, Richard, iron out difficulties as early as possible, and to resolve issues as early as possible. Where an application in future is for more than 5 or more houses, you can choose a number if you like, that then there'd be an automatic meeting between a ward member or ward members and the planning officer overseeing an application. That might resolve some issues as early as possible. The second thing, where a parish council, similarly, where a parish council submits comments about a planning application, that the case officer would make a meeting as early as possible with the parish council to discuss the issues, and this may resolve issues early as possible and prevent shortened committee meetings later on. So a couple of points there that I think Sam Miles has got them already, but we'd like to put on board that maybe would improve things, the way things are done in the future. That's all.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and that is part of the peer review into the early engagement has just been failing. So I'm making sure that we do that, and with ward members. And in actual fact, your 5 houses I do get, but in actual fact, an extension can be as controversial in an area as 5 houses, if you know what I mean. If that extension is really upsetting a lot of the neighbours or whatever. So I think it's down to the fact is that nearly every planning application, people should see what's coming in their area. And if they do have a comment on it, let them get in early and let them get into that process, that it may be a problem. But hopefully that'll come out of this. Councillor Wheeler next, then Councillor Ayton, and then Councillor Liss.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I'm indebted to David for his response to some of the questions I asked him earlier in the week. Certainly with the report, that there's plenty of good practical stuff in there to make some significant improvements. But I think that there was, when I read it, that the more I read the report, the more there was this preponderance on the cultural aspect of the relationships within the planning arena, rather than say department. Whilst I'd stop short of saying that there should be some sort of truth and reconciliation committee between members and officers, clearly, as is highlighted in the report, there is a degree of mistrust and possibly not a lot of respect going both ways, and that's rather unfortunate because, as we know in the process, the officers are the experts and know the policy and the way to go, and we as members, as lay people, are coming from a different angle as regards to representing our communities. And you know, I feel it's going to be a hard road to travel. You know, if it means getting members and officers in a room together and being absolutely brutally honest with one another about where they feel they could improve the planning process, it needs to be done. Because as the report talks about, we should come across as one planning authority, not an us and them authority, which, you know, having sat in planning meetings before, comes across. With regards to some of the processes that have been recommended, and I'm looking at Simon here, I'm trusting him to make sure that any of the streamlining of the process that comes out as a result of this doesn't denude the democratic process within the planning process. You know, it's as Richard said, it's part of a process where the general public always get involved and expect to be heard, and we as members have the right to represent them. So whilst I understand that there needs to be some streamlining, let's face it, 90% of the processes of applications go through pretty much untainted. It's that awkward 10% that we're probably going to concentrate on during this review. But it's always, in most walks of life, that awkward 10% is the one that causes the problem. So I think there needs to be a reinstating of trust and respect from both parties, and to present, you know, an authority where we get the trust from not only developers but also the general public. And again, I talked to Mr. David about pre-application. You know, pre-application discussions. We need to do more to publicise that. A lot of the problems that we get during the planning committee meetings we ironed out before it even gets there. And if the parishes are involved and the developers involved and the members are involved at each point, then I feel there's going to be rapid progress made. So I wish you luck, Simon. I really do. Don't envy you.
I've got your hand up, Darren. I'll come to you at the end, though. I'll let Councillor Ayton go first and then Councillor List.
Right. First of all, I'd like to just clear up Councillor Welch said about compulsory training for planning. That actually is in place in Craven. We do have compulsory training, and if you don't attend a meeting within 12 months, you cannot sit. So that's already in place. A lot of it tonight's been discussed about the committee. I think the committee actually isn't very good when you take 4 hours to deal with 2 applications or 3.5 hours to deal with applications. That is not a good reflection on the planning committee. But they actually deal with so few applications that all of the fault doesn't lie with members and the committee. It comes back to officers or the planning department, some unknown reason, not getting planning applications determined, whichever way it goes. Today I've had to get in touch with Mr. Smurthwaite regarding an application, and this is for the 3rd time I think I've been chasing this. Simple application on the face of it, which was submitted on the 30th of April, and now we're at the 1st of December, and we're still waiting for a decision on that. So, you know, it certainly doesn't all lie with members, because they deal with so few applications. I would like to know on the improvement board, if you could just refresh me what the membership of that board is, if someone could refresh me on that, please. And is it politically proportioned? Does it need to be politically proportioned? And is there an officer involved? because it comes back to what I've been saying. A lot of this problem is within the planning department. So I would hope there is an officer involved in this board. Could someone give me an answer to that, please?
Yes, there'll be at least 2 or 3 officers involved, and that's why we don't want too many members on it, because we want it to do stuff. But yes, it will have officers on board.
And do we know how many members are going on it, and how those members are going to be selected to sit on that panel?
The plan is the lead member for planning and the chair of the planning, as written in the report.
Just the 2 members?
Just the 2 members, and then we keep it small, and for all of the members to feed up to them. You've now got a lead member in there, and they should be feeding backwards and forwards information, and that's the point of them.
Right, thank you.
Councillor Liss?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I mean, planning, this isn't something that's happened overnight. This is something that's grown over a while. I mean, it isn't that long since our planning system was in special measures. So I welcome the report. There's not a lot in the report that we weren't expecting to hear. I think members of the planning committee, all of us, will have been expecting to hear the majority of stuff that's in that report. The biggie for me is this issue that's already been brought up by, I think it was Councillor Wheeler, where members do need to talk to officers before the meeting. An awful lot of the things that are discussed at the meeting can be sorted out. But we've been talking about this for quite a long time, an awful long time. We sit there after a meeting and say, well, why don't members talk to officers before? We do it every time. My request for this group that's going to be looking at this is that is a critical issue as far as this whole thing's concerned. But you know, going back to the membership of it, I mean, planning isn't political, is it really? Having said that, I think the chairman and the lead member are certainly a good starter for 10 in terms of the membership of that. It has got officers on it, and I'm hoping and I'm sure that Simon is more than capable of sorting quite a lot of this out, along with Linda. I would point out, by the way, that since I've been vice chairman, I've been in, Linda has included me an awful lot in meetings that we've had, and there's been a lot of them. The work she's put into this so far, she recognises as much as anyone that we have issues with planning. And I'm sure she welcomes the fact that Councillor Myers is coming in as lead member, and we're going to try and get to the bottom and try and put some gravitas into this. But let it be meaningful. Let it be something that's going to result in a change at planning committee. And that change needs to be, yeah, okay, with members and perhaps talking too long and repeating things. But yeah, there's also issues with officers as well. And yeah, I welcome the report, and good luck, Simon. I hope it goes well. If ever I can be of any assistance, please feel free to give me a shout.
Thank you, Councillor Liss. Councillor Metcalfe, do you want to come in?
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I'll come in from a completely naive viewpoint. I've never been on the planning committee. I'm a relative new councillor, but reading the report, the peer review, the information that I've got here, you know, from my perspective, I'm almost an outsider looking in on this. And if I was putting my business head on, it would be the one positive that I've read that is absolutely critical is the fact that members and officers want to work together. And the end point here is the customer. And everything needs to be, from the sounds of it, the key is the communication being more efficient and effective. And I don't agree with Councillor Heseltine, because I think it will just add something more unnecessary and complex and cumbersome to the process. I think we need to put trust in Simon with this difficult task, but very, very well. It's gonna happen because it needs to happen. And I think we need to put trust in Councillor Myers to do that. And the key thing is that it needs to be more efficient and it needs to be more streamlined, and people need to communicate better to save everybody's time and pain. But like I say, to finish off on a positive note from my perspective, if the inclination is there to do that, then it will happen. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Metcalfe, I was actually going to say that myself, that, you know, that's the one key thing that comes out of the report, is that everybody wants to see a better planning service at Craven. I'm mindful just that we've got the action plan. We haven't really had anything added to it as such tonight. Councillor Nolan was specific. At the moment, there's obviously no timescales and no lead person, so I would expect when it comes back, can we have the full list back, including things that are done, Councillor Myers, if you know what I mean, things that have already been actioned, because I don't want it to come back with just sort of
and I think a sort of timetable and by which, you know, members can judge our progress. Yeah, absolutely. You know, this has to happen. It has to be put right. It's got to be put right soon, you know. Yeah, so believe me, otherwise I wouldn't be doing this. I mean, I've plenty of than take on additional poison chalice. But no, I'm determined we'll see it through. The only real comment I want to make, Councillor Wheeler, yes, streamlining, etc., is very important. There is no way that on my watch there will be any diminution of the democratic element of any aspect of council, planning or otherwise. I'm a fervent believer in local democracy. It's why I don't want a unitary, and it's why I strongly support a committee system rather than an executive way of running councils. Really believe in it, and everybody's right to disagree with me. Yeah, we'll keep the democratic elements. And I think more so if we have early engagement with members. So, but as I say, I mean, I've taken on board what Councillor Lynn said. Had it from Councillor Brown. Anything, any suggestions? Honour to send them.
Councillor Myers sort of disappeared out then, but I think what he was actually saying was that please send any suggestions. I haven't really had a seconder for your addition, Robert, so I'm guessing that members are happy with the makeup of the committee at the moment. With Select, who I'm sure will be calling this back in at some point because they did do a review and they'll need an update. So I think we'll make sure that Select does see this, but I also want this committee because I want all the councillors across the organisation to be involved with this because we need to get planning right. So, and judging by that peer review, it just blatantly isn't right across the organisation, and we've got to get on and get it sorted. So I will wait with bated breath for Councillor Myers' update in January. And with that, members, do we need a vote on this, Annette, or is it just?
Chair, the recommendations don't require it, so it's a matter for you. I don't appear to have a record of the recommendations being seconded yet.
That's
Happy to
right. Yeah,
second.
no second.
Happy to second from the chair then.
Right.
This needs doing, so let's get on. Over to you, Simon, and Linda, and the officers. Let's have a functioning planning department as soon as possible. On that note, members, I'm looking around. There's no massive dissension or waving of hands. We'll move on to agenda item 12.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll take this. Thank you, members. This report is asking us to consider the construction of a small enclosed extension to the entrance of Skipton Crematorium. And the recommendation includes approving a supplementary capital estimate of £30,000 that will be in addition to a very generous legacy donation from Councillor Pat Fairbanks' estate of £20,000. And I know that when Pat was a member of this council, it was one of her sort of hobby horses, the crematorium. She felt there was limited capacity, and she was very concerned about elderly residents in particular who might be attending a service and being forced to sort of stand outside in the elements and didn't feel there was adequate shelter. And so she is, and I would like to sort of posthumously thank Pat for both her determination to do something about that and her very generous donation to see it through. And so the details are in the report about the nature of the extension. I think you can see in the appendix, it has illustrations of it. I think it's a very good design. It will improve the capacity by an additional 20 people standing, and in the extension, there will be audio visual equipment so they can view the service taking part in the main crematorium. And I hope members will support this supplementary estimate of £30,000 to complete this project. And can I also just finish by saying, I hope it's not in the report, there's no recommendation, but I hope we might consider, if this is approved, when the extension is built, that we might have some sort of memorial or plaque dedicated to Pat in the extension, because I think we should commemorate her efforts and her generosity. Thank you. I move the recommendation.
Second, Chairman.
Sorry, Vicky, I think it looks like the chairman might have dropped out.
Do you want me to step in for a moment?
Yes, if you would, Councillor Myers. I think he must have lost his connection. Thank you.
Yeah, well, mine's a bit dodgy, but so members, it's been proposed and seconded. Anybody wish to comment on it, raise any questions? I mean, I know we're all very grateful to wonderful Pat, and it will be very fitting, very dear to her heart. And it's not without humour that she put a time limit on it. She knew Craven. She was determined it would be done. So I'm very pleased to see this happening. Darren, the only thing I'm not clear about, and I may have dropped out now, I don't know, you seem to be frozen, but who's going to make the decision about what form it takes, glass or stone front?
Following the approval at this committee, the next step is to get formal quotes. We've already started pre-application, so we'll get feedback before we go into full application. And once we get the formal quotes back, which will be on the various options, that'll be put back to lead members.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, so you don't need to express a preference this evening. It's not the committee of taste this evening. The funding. Any members got anything to say? So I think we probably do need a vote on that, Annette, do we?
We do, yes, Councillor Myers.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, Vicky, can we take a vote on that?
Yeah, Councillor Foster's back with us now.
Oh, good.
Councillor Myers, Chairman's back. So yeah, I'll do a vote on this. So if you can just say whether you're for, against, or you're abstaining. Chairman?
I didn't take part in the debate because I was in.
Okay.
So I'll
You're incommunicado. Okay. Councillor Heseltine.
For.
Councillor Ireton.
For.
Councillor Liss.
For.
Councillor Madeley. No, he's not with us, is he? Councillor Metcalfe.
For.
Councillor Morell.
For.
Councillor Mulligan.
For.
Councillor Myers. Councillor Myers. Looks like he's frozen. Oh, four.
Four. Yeah.
Councillor Noland.
For.
Councillor Place,
4.
Councillor Rose,
4.
Councillor Welsh,
4.
and Councillor Wheeler.
4.
That's carried, Chair. Thank you.
You did a good job there, Councillor Myers. I've been stood outside my crematorium in the cold and the wind and the rain. It swept across what is now going to be Wyvern Park. It's a big thank you to Councillor Fairbanks for her contribution. Moving on, agenda item 13, new lease for Airville Nurseries at Airville Park. Am I taking this one? I'm quite happy to. The lease has run out. This is a really important thing that we do, and I'd like to see it continue. So therefore, I'm quite happy to move the recommendations from the chair.
Second that, Chair.
Members looking round. Find my participants list. I've got Councillor Mulligan had his hand up, but I'm assuming that was the second. Unless you want to comment any further, Patrick.
Yeah, I just think I agree with what you said, Richard. I think this is a very significant sort of project. It's the Stepping Stones project, and what they do is they help people with learning disabilities to develop knowledge and skills in horticulture. And I think it's they've been there for something like 14 years. And I just want to read something from the website of the Friends of the Stepping Stones, because I think it's important. The emphasis is on practical hands-on experience backed up with regular tuition and supervision that empowers the people using the service and increases their independence and confidence. So I think it's a very worthwhile program, and I genuinely hope everyone will support it. Thank you.
Councillor Myers.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Just to agree with what Councillor Mulligan said, and in view of the next item on the agenda, which you'll be taking, what a wonderful use of council's assets. What a fantastic thing for us to assist in, and I'm really.
I've no other members wishing to speak. Do we need a vote on this one, Annette?
No, the recommendations don't require it, Chair, so it's over to you.
Right. I've nobody waving madly saying they don't want to support this, so we'll take that as ascension on that one and move on to item 14. Just in case anybody doesn't know, we're going through local government reform at the moment. Craven has some big assets out there that we've some which we're investing in, some which we have invested in, and we feel it will be prudent to look at how those assets look in any form of local government reorganisation. If we're going to transfer these assets across into a, or there's a potential there to transfer these assets across into a trust, setting that up, looking at it in greater detail, we really need to do this piece of work. It's not a small piece of work, and it's just, from my perspective, it just protects, or gives us that protection that if we do end up with a full North Yorkshire or even an East-West, that some of those assets are locally managed within Craven. We're obviously looking at some of the bigger ticket items, but there'll also be some things in various areas, towns and villages. It sort of come from David as this, so I'll pull over to him, but I do think that we need to be mindful of our assets we currently have and where they will sit in any new organisation, and making sure they have the proper sort of respect and finances within those organisations. And if we don't feel we're going to get that, we need to have an option to do something different within Craven. So it's either David or Paul Chevlin. I'm not sure who wants to take this one on board.
I'm happy to take it. Yes, as Councillor Foster said, really, it's that first step in looking at how assets are used in the future for the benefit of all of Craven's residents, really. And as you're well aware, we've got some substantial assets which currently benefit our communities. So it's really looking at what's the best position for them in terms of decision making, in terms of using those assets, but also the services which take place in them. which is as vital, whether it's town halls or swimming pool or whatever it may be. So we've had some initial discussions with the locality who've got a lot of experience in this, but we will be going out to tender, if with your approval, to get somebody on board to help us develop a business case to see what shape that could look like. And at present, there's no preconceptions what that may be, but without doing this first piece of work, then we won't be able to proceed with anything.
In real terms, this is an options. We're funding an options appraisal. Is that sort of correct? You're nodding,
Yes.
David. So yeah,
Right. Yeah, that's right.
Councillor Myers.
I am a very, very staunch supporter of this. I think we should be ambitious in the way we look at this and what we hope to achieve with the residents we hold, the assets we hold on behalf of our residents, and how they can be used to benefit our community in the future. So I will be keeping a very keen eye on this, and I look forward to it. Concrete to allow us to continue to care in all manner of ways.
Councillor Mulligan.
Thank you, Chair. I like the sort of aspiration of this and the idea of it, but if we're talking about the practicality of it, I'm talking about in my role as lead member for financial results, I do have some slight concerns. I mean, if you take the example of this, I know we seem to be talking about packaging up assets together so that the ones that lose money will be offset by the ones that make money. I think that's in 4.3. But if you take the leisure center, for example, and let's say we gave that to a community group or a social enterprise and they were going to take it over and run it for Craven. And then we had something like what happened this year, COVID, and the swimming pool has lost £750,000. Who's going to support that? I mean, we can support it as a council. We have reserves and we can bring it through till it reopens. But if you're talking about a community enterprise, I don't understand. And then what would happen if they couldn't? What if they couldn't finance it? Does it close? Is it sold to a private company, etc.? I mean, this paper seems to be suggesting that, well, we could package it up with some car parks and then the revenue from the car parks would support it. I don't know if that's the idea or not. Maybe David could go into some more detail about that. But I would just want to make sure there was a very sound business plan so that there's a sort of guaranteed financing for these assets. And so we wouldn't be setting them up to fail or anything and lose them for the district. Thank you.
Richard, could I have a few words, please?
Yeah, by all means, Robert, go for it.
Yeah, the concept and the principle that's involved here are basically sound. £50,000 to develop a business case sounds a lot of money because no doubt this firm's developing this sort of business case for numerous other authorities. But if for sake of argument, that say the car parks, which are milk cows really for supporting Craven District revenue, if they are offloaded to some sort of community-based group, then whatever local government is in place, whichever council there is, after the unit is sorted out, that revenue won't be there. And it does smack a little bit of asset stripping of an outgoing authority and scorched earth approach for an incoming authority. But the principle's sound. I think we ought to look further into it, but as Councillor Mulligan says, we need to have a bit of caution on elements of it as well. But we bottom line is that we're here to look after Craven ratepayers and Craven residents, so look into it further. Just be careful.
Yeah, I mean, if the locality work comes back and it isn't financially sound, well, Patrick and Robert, with this, you know, we can't take it forward. We have to protect these assets. This is the whole point of doing it, is protect them. If we're making them more at risk, then we can't go down that route. That's got to be the crucial thing. But we need to have a proper look at these. These are assets that people of Craven have paid for over the years, put in place, invested in, and done everything else. And don't get me wrong, the new authority still covers the people of Craven, and if that's the best place to put them, that will be part of this report. It has to be. And if that's the safest place to put them, we'll have to do it. But at the same time, we also need to make sure that these assets can't be assets stripped by the new authority and put in a trust or whatever else, and pulled away from Craven and put. I mean, there has been terrible trouble through this with organisations with leisure centres in trust. We've been one of the lucky ones as a local authority. We've been able to get our 75p in the pound back on that. There's been some money latterly invested in those that are in trust within local authorities, but it's been a very, very different picture from those where they've been within a local authority. But who's to know that another government, another pandemic or another time like this would work in the same way as this one has in order to fund those schemes for local authorities. It's all a bit up in the air, but I do think we need to do this piece of work and get a clear picture for members to make a decision on. So I'm quite happy to move it, and I think it's probably been seconded. I don't have any other hands up at the moment, so I'm guessing vote on this, Annette? Yes? No?
Yes, sorry, Chair, yes, you do.
Over to you then, Vicky, please.
So I'll just call your names out again, members. Councillor Foster, Chairman.
All the recommendations.
Heseltine, Councillor Heseltine.
For.
Councillor Ireton.
For.
Councillor Liss.
For.
Councillor Metcalfe.
For.
Councillor Morell.
For.
Councillor Mulligan.
For.
Councillor Myers.
For.
Councillor Noland.
For.
Councillor Place.
For.
Councillor Rose.
For.
Councillor Welsh. I'm not sure we've got Councillor Welsh with us, Chair. I think he might have left. Right, okay. And Councillor Wheeler.
For.
Thank you. That's carried, Chair. That's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you. We now need to move into private session. I'm happy to move us going into private session. Do I have a seconder?